In every neighborhood, there is always one dog whose personality is larger than life, literally and figuratively. For the Johnson family, that dog was Duke, their enormous Great Dane. At first glance, Duke looked like a gentle giant, sculpted out of muscle and grace, towering over every other dog at the park, his long legs and sleek frame giving him the appearance of royalty. But what made Duke famous was not his size, nor his regal stride, nor the way children giggled in awe whenever he walked past. No, Duke's claim to fame was something far funnier, something that turned him from an intimidating giant into the neighborhood's biggest comedian. His obsession with drinking water directly from the bathtub faucet. It had all started when he was still a growing pup, though. Even then, pup meant he was already the size of a small pony. The Johnsons had tried everything to keep him hydrated. They bought him a giant stainless steel water bowl, big enough to double as a bird. They filled it 3, sometimes 4 times a day. But no matter how fresh the water was, Duke only sniffed it, took a half-hearted sip, and then walked away with a huff. They tried fancy water dispensers, even a ceramic fountain designed for dogs and cats, but nothing impressed him. He was picky, almost royal in his tastes. That is, until one day, Mrs. Johnson heard an odd splashing sound upstairs. She rushed to the bathroom, worried that one of her kids had left the tap running. But when she opened the door, the sight nearly made her burst out laughing. There was Duke, his massive body awkwardly wedged into the small bathroom, front paws resting on the rim of the tub, his giant head lowered under the shiny faucet. With the patience of a monk, he waited as droplets of water dripped down, licking them eagerly one by one. His tail wagged lazily, as if he had discovered the world's greatest treasure. And from that day forward, Duke had decided the bathtub faucet was his personal water fountain. Of course, this new habit came with challenges. For one, the Johnsons quickly realized that Duke didn't just drink from the faucet, he demanded it. Whenever he was thirsty, he would stomp his heavy paws through the hallway, head straight for the bathroom, and sit beside the tub like a king awaiting his servant. If no one followed, he barked booming barks that rattled the floorboards. When someone finally appeared, he'd glance meaningfully at the faucet, then back at his human, as if saying, "Well, turn it on now." At first, the family laughed at the novelty, turning the tap just enough to let water trickle. Duke would lap it up happily, his long pink tongue flicking out like a faucet attachment of its own. But as weeks passed, it became a ritual. Morning, faucet. Afternoon, faucet. Midnight thirst. Yes, faucet again. The Johnsons joked that their massive dog had single-handedly increased their water bill. What made it funnier was how dramatically Duke rejected all alternatives. If someone placed a bowl of water in front of him, he'd stare at it, then glance toward the bathroom, as if to say, "Nice try, but I have standards." He even became jealous if someone else used his faucet. One evening, Mr. Johnson was brushing his teeth when Duke barged into the bathroom and nudged him aside with a gentle but firm shove of his giant head, insisting that his turn had come. It was his bathroom now, and the family lived in it under his rules. Over time, the neighborhood caught on to Duke's quirk. Friends and neighbors visiting the Johnsons often asked to see the faucet show. With great ceremony, one of the kids would lead Duke into the bathroom, turn the tap, and everyone would laugh as the giant dog positioned himself like an oversized toddler, happily gulping water straight from the source. Children adored him, adults chuckled at his aristocratic taste, and soon enough, Duke was known not as the big dog, but as the dog who drinks from the bathtub. But beneath the comedy, there was something heartwarming about his ritual. To Duke, the faucet wasn't just about quenching thirst, it was a comfort, a routine that made him feel cared for. Each time someone turned the tap for him, it was as though they acknowledged his unique personality, quirks and all. And in return, Duke gave the Johnsons endless love. He was gentle with the children, patient when toddlers pulled his ears, protective when strangers came near the house, and affectionate in ways only a Great Dane could be, leaning his enormous body against his humans, almost knocking them over in the process. Years passed, and Duke's ritual never changed. Even as he grew older and slower, his love for the faucet remained. On hot summer days, he would linger by the tub, enjoying not just the water, but the cool tiles beneath his paws. In winter, he'd press his nose against the shiny faucet, waiting for the comforting trickle. And every time, without fail, the Johnsons would smile and turn it on for him. What started as a funny discovery had become a cherished family tradition. Duke may have looked like a giant, intimidating beast to strangers, but to those who knew him, he was a clown, a gentle soul, and a beloved family member with the funniest, most unforgettable habit. And long after the Johnson kids grew up, they would still tell stories about their Great Dane, who refused water from bowls but insisted on drinking only from the bathtub faucet, proving once again that dogs are not just pets, they are unique characters who fill our homes with laughter, quirks, and love. Life with Duke, the bathtub drinking Great Dane, became even more entertaining as time went on. The Johnsons quickly realized that his obsession with the faucet wasn't just a cute quirk, it was a full-blown lifestyle. Duke treated the bathroom as his personal kingdom, and the faucet as his throne. Every morning, while the kids scrambled for the sink to brush their teeth, they had to negotiate with Duke, who sat squarely in front of the tub, refusing to move until someone turned on the tap. His size made it nearly impossible to argue. After all, when a 200-pound dog plants himself in a narrow bathroom doorway, there's little chance of squeezing past. Soon, the Johnson family developed a schedule. Duke first, then the kids. It was as though the household revolved around their giant dog's drinking ritual. But Duke's obsession soon reached hilarious new levels. One Saturday afternoon, Mrs. Johnson was soaking in a warm bubble bath, finally enjoying some peace, when the door creaked open. There was Duke, his long face peering around the frame, ears drooping with anticipation. He walked straight to the tub and sat down beside it, staring at her with expectant eyes. Mrs. Johnson tried to ignore him, but Duke whined a low, deep sound that echoed like a cello string. He wanted his faucet. With a sigh, she leaned forward and turned the tap, letting a gentle stream run alongside her bathwater. Instantly, Duke leaned in and slurped noisily, making the serene bubble bath into a comedy show. From then on, the bathroom wasn't private anymore. If the faucet was on, Duke was there, no questions asked. Things became even more complicated when Duke decided that only the bathtub faucet was acceptable, not the kitchen sink, not the garden hose, not even rainwater. On one hot summer day, the Johnson kids thought they'd trick him. They filled his giant stainless steel bowl with fresh, cool water straight from the fridge, and even added ice cubes to make it enticing. Duke sniffed it, gave a dramatic snort, and then turned his back on the bowl, as though deeply insulted. With regal determination, he marched upstairs and sat beside the dry tub, staring at the silent faucet until someone caved. His stubbornness became legendary. Guests were always amazed when they witnessed the routine for themselves. Once, at a birthday party, little Timmy Johnson proudly announced, "Want to see something funny? Watch Duke," and led the entire group of children upstairs. Within minutes, Duke was performing his faucet trick, drinking water straight from the tap like the world's biggest toddler, while the kids erupted in laughter. Even adults couldn't resist filming him for social media, and soon Duke became a small internet sensation. Videos of the Great Dane who drinks only from the bathtub spread through the neighborhood group chats, earning comments like "That's the fanciest dog I've ever seen," and "Give him sparkling water next time." The family joked that Duke should have his own TV show, yet with fame came mischief. Duke began demanding his faucet time at the worst possible moments. Midnight, he would bark until someone stumbled out of bed to serve him. Dinner time, he would trot into the bathroom, growl playfully, and wait until someone left their plate to turn on the tap. Even worse, Duke began interfering with showers. More than once, Mr. Johnson was enjoying his morning rinse, when suddenly the shower curtain burst open, and Duke shoved his giant head inside, tongue lolling, trying to lap water from the faucet, as if they were sharing. Mr. Johnson nearly slipped more than once, and the kids laughed for days about Dad and Duke's shower incident. Despite the chaos, the Johnsons couldn't stay mad at him. Duke's habits were too charming, too ridiculous to punish. Besides, he had a way of looking at them with those big soulful eyes, as if to say, "You understand me. You know this is who I am." And in truth, they did understand. The faucet wasn't just a quirk anymore, it was Duke's personality. It was part of what made him special. By now, Duke's faucet time had turned into a family bonding ritual. Whenever guests visited, it became a tradition to let Duke drink, and the laughter that filled the bathroom made everyone feel closer. But the funniest moment came one evening when the Johnsons were hosting a holiday dinner. The table was full, the air smelled of roasted turkey and cinnamon pie, and everyone was enjoying the warmth of family togetherness. Suddenly, Duke began to bark. Loud, persistent. Guests assumed someone was at the door, but the family knew better. "It's the faucet," groaned Mrs. Johnson, standing up reluctantly. But before she could move, Duke took matters into his own paws. With surprising speed for his size, he lumbered toward the bathroom and nosed the door open. A minute later, the sound of rushing water filled the house. Duke had figured it out. He had learned how to turn on the faucet by himself. The family rushed upstairs in disbelief, only to find Duke proudly lapping water while the tub steadily filled beneath him. He wagged his tail as though he had just discovered electricity. From that day on, the Johnsons had to keep a close eye on water bills, and Duke's bathroom antics became even harder to control. Still, they couldn't stop laughing. Duke's faucet obsession was no longer just a funny story, it was a legacy. As months turned into years, Duke's faucet obsession became more than just a quirk, it became a family legend. The Johnsons could hardly remember a time when the sound of running water wasn't accompanied by the deep slurping noises of their enormous Great Dane. His faucet time was as predictable as the sunrise, and everyone in the house had adjusted to his routine. What once seemed like chaos had become comfort. For the children, Duke's antics were a constant source of laughter and stories to share at school. They would proudly tell classmates about how their dog refused to drink like normal pets, and instead demanded the dignity of his personal bathtub. Videos of him guzzling water, knocking shampoo bottles aside with his massive head, and even nosing the faucet handle to turn it on himself continued to flood social media, making Duke somewhat of a local celebrity. Neighbors who visited always asked, "Can we see the bathtub dog?" And Duke never failed to put on a performance, striding into the bathroom with the air of a king arriving at his throne. Yet beneath the laughter, the Johnsons realized something deeper was happening. Duke's strange habit was weaving memories that bound the family together. On days when things felt tough, when work stress, school tests, or bills seemed overwhelming, Duke's ridiculous rituals always brought smiles. He had a way of reminding them that joy could be found in the simplest, silliest moments. Even on quiet evenings, when the world felt heavy, the family would gather around the bathroom just to watch Duke lap happily at the faucet, and in those minutes, worries melted away. Still, time has its way of reminding us that nothing lasts forever. Duke grew older. His once powerful strides slowed, and his face began to gray around the muzzle. The mighty Great Dane, who had once demanded midnight faucet runs, now spent longer naps, stretched out on the bathroom rug, his body too tired to keep up the same antics. But his spirit never dimmed. Even when his joints ached, Duke would summon the strength to shuffle toward the tub, and give his trademark whine until someone turned the faucet for him. The Johnsons treated it like a sacred ritual, honoring his request as though serving water to royalty. They laughed less at his antics now, and more at the sweetness of the bond he had created. Then came a day that the Johnsons would never forget. One summer evening, after a long family outing, they returned home to find Duke waiting patiently by the bathroom door. His tail wagged slowly, his eyes tired but shining. The children rushed to turn on the tap, and Duke lapped the water with all the joy of his youth, slurping noisily, drops falling on his big paws. They all sat on the bathroom floor with him, watching as if it were the most important event in the world. And in many ways, it was. That night, after finishing his drink, Duke rested his giant head on Mrs. Johnson's lap and gave one long, content sigh. He looked at each of them in turn, those soulful eyes speaking volumes. And in that moment, the family felt the weight of years of love. Duke passed peacefully in his sleep later that night, surrounded by the people who adored him most. The faucet stood dry, silent, and for the first time in years, the bathroom felt empty. The Johnsons grieved deeply, but through the tears, they also laughed, remembering the countless times Duke had barged into showers, interrupted bubble baths, and even managed to run up their water bill with his stubborn faucet demands. To honor him, they hung a framed photo of Duke by the bathroom door, showing him mid-slurp at his beloved faucet. It became more than just a funny memory, was a reminder that love often comes in the quirkiest, most unexpected forms. Duke had taught them patience, joy, and the beauty of embracing a pet exactly as they are. Even years later, when guests visited and asked about the picture, the Johnsons would retell Duke's story with pride, laughter, and maybe a few tears. They began calling him the Faucet King, a title that perfectly fit his larger-than-life personality. And though the house was quieter without him, the sound of running water would always carry a special meaning. For the Johnsons, every drip from the faucet was a memory of Duke the gentle giant, who refused to drink like a dog, and instead lived like a king. His legacy wasn't just about a funny drinking habit. It was about the way he brought joy into every corner of their lives. Duke proved that sometimes, the strangest quirks can create the most unforgettable love stories.